I'm feeling pretty good, but I'm also scared shitless.
Oh, of course.
I'm like, dude, the bus is gone. Like, I have no, I think my phone was dead. I couldn't contact my buddies because I just know I would have. So I think I remember either my phone was dead or I had no service. I'm in Mexico. And me and these guys start talking, and they're like, let me get the shirt off your back. In that moment, I realized, bro, if I give these guys my shirt, I'm giving them my life. I'm done. I take my shirt off, and I'm cooked.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't do that.
It's always a good hang.
Bang!
What's up, man?
What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good.
We're back for episode 4, and this is a special episode today because if you've been watching the episodes that we've made so far, thank you. You might be wondering who the frick are these guys?
Who the hell are these guys?
Is that a stranger? Would I break a chandelier?
I don't even know if we introduced ourselves, kind of.
No. Well, this is our time to do it, and I'm gonna hold off on introducing myself for this episode, because this episode is all about our friend Gill over here. And I'd first like to ask, how are you?
I'm good, man.
How are you right now?
Right now, one of my philosophies, bro, is like I kind of operate from a Zen mindset of like, right now is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you can worry about the future, you can sweat about your past, but I think when you operate from the, because if you think, when I get this, when I get that, I'll be good then.
Right.
You know what I mean? But like, if you really have the mindset of like, hey, right now is pretty freaking good, even if it's maybe not, you could be better, but
right.
You will be fine. So
yeah, well, if you focus on,
I'm pretty good.
Yeah, if you just focus on that, man. And I almost feel like if you are always thinking about what's next, maybe I'll be good then. Like, are you really going to be good then?
Right.
Because you've always got a set of problems that you're dealing with.
Exactly, dude.
I'm glad you're doing well right now.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I would like to do my best at introducing you.
Okay.
Just a very short little blurb, if that's cool.
Sure.
For those of you that don't know, Gill is my roommate. He is one of my best friends and my newfound camping partner. As you heard a couple episodes ago, we kind of went through hell and back together and faced a couple near-death experiences there.
Yeah.
So that bonded us pretty quick. Gill and I met through a mutual, and he actually you weren't supposed to live in this house with us.
Right.
But the fourth roommate at the time ended up having a family emergency and had to bail. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks before we moved to Atlanta.
Literally.
And Gill, I just remember you being like, I'll do it. I'm in.
Yeah.
Was that, so I've before, I continue with this introduction, did you see that moment as an opportunity to light a fire under your butt? I was going to do this. I was going to move, and now here's my opportunity. I should take it.
I was planning on moving down here anyway.
Okay.
So that was the plan, and I was just going to get my own place. And then that opportunity came up to live with, people that I know. And I was like, you move to a new town, move to a new city, you uproot your whole life.
Right.
It's easier to go into that, living with people,
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just, it makes that transition easier because you're all doing it together.
Right.
So I saw that opportunity and I was like, yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah. I don't know. We didn't really even know each other that well at the time. We met maybe once or twice.
We met a couple times, I think, maybe at a bars. And it was one of those things where it was like, hey, I'm Sean.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm Sean Gill, by the way.
Hey, by the way.
And that was kind of it. It was one of those just like, hey, what's up, man? How are you?
Absolutely.
But we didn't really know each other. No.
Well, I'm glad we do now because you have become... There's a few people in my life that occupy this spot, and you're one of them. People who are incredibly intentional and just driven through the scope of their intentionality. Everything you say, everything you do is so intentional. And I can see the gears turning in your head when you're doing things, being like, is my action or is what I'm going to say, is it going to serve the situation? I don't know if you know if you do that?
I mean, I'll
It's probably
tell you what.
subconscious.
Yeah. You know, I've been training as an actor. I'll get into that, but one of my teachers who I admire a lot, before we get into the work, he has us set intentions. And this is something I started doing this habitually, kind of. So if I go into an endeavor or something, or I think even this podcast, like we when we're doing this podcast, it's like, all right, I'm going to have fun with this.
Right.
Sometimes I'll even write them down. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to be open, and I'm going to enjoy myself. You know what I mean? And like, I have those intentions going in. So I got in the habit of just setting intentions in my life, and it's changed my life. You know what I mean? It's like when you have these intentions, this preconceived mindset that this is going to be a positive experience.
Yeah.
You'll have one almost all the time.
And it's almost like you're more apt to take actions that are going to fulfill that.
right.
Right.
I'm
That's
glad
really
you
cool.
noticed that. That's cool.
Yeah,
though. I didn't
absolutely,
really think
man.
about
I mean,
that.
that's one of the coolest things about you, I think, is just how blissfully unaware of how special you are. It's pretty dope, man. I mean, you're a really great human being.
Thanks,
It's
man.
just like
Likewise.
salt of the earth, man.
Jeez.
Thanks. But we're not talking about me. So cut the shit. Yeah, that's sort of my intro for you. I mean, I know who you are. I know what some of your quirky habits are. I know your sense of humor for the most part, but I'm really excited for myself to get to know you a little bit more through this, because I've got some questions that I'm asking for a reason.
Okay.
And I'm excited for our listeners to get to know you, man, because it's good to have some context moving forward.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I think that's pretty cool. So without further ado, I'd like to announce it's Gill time. Yeah, so I don't want to spend too much time on this first part, but I do think you should do kind of a broad intro, i.e., like, where are you from?
Okay.
Why don't you just start there? I can kind of pin these questions as we go.
I was born and raised in Danvers, Massachusetts. It's a little suburban town, just 20 minutes north of Boston, Mass. Great town, and I'm so blessed to have grown up there.
Yeah.
Did you grow up with kids who were like, I can't wait to get out of this fucking shithole? You know what I mean?
Of course.
That was never my mindset. I was like, I'm so blessed to grow up here.
Mm-hmm.
Had an amazing group of friends. And it was just a cool town. You know, I could ride my bike around town, and it was safe, and it was fun, and it was, it was just an awesome place to grow up. And I had a great childhood. Not everyone can say that. So I feel really blessed to have that childhood. So yeah, I grew up in Danvers. My parents got divorced. The reason I moved to Danvers because my parents got divorced when I was 7. That affected my life a little bit.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Not having my dad around all the time. And I'm a little bit of a mama's boy, bro. My mother, there's no one I have more respect for in my life than my mom. You want to talk about somebody who was blindsided, who had to lace up her boots, work multiple jobs.
You're saying she was blindsided by the divorce?
By everything, yeah. And like
just
she had
life
to,
in general.
she was like a stay-at-home mom, and then she had to kind of get to work. And like now I got to support 3 kids. I have 2 sisters. I have a twin sister and a younger sister. And, no one works harder than her. And, I love my mother. And yeah. I had a great childhood, like I said. I formed my best friends to this day. We all like kind of formed a group in middle school.
The Danvers dudes.
Yeah, and I'm still best friends with them. I'm also really lucky to have those guys in my life. You want to talk about people that have shaped me, shaped my sense of humor, my morals, my music taste, everything, bro. And we're still all best friends. So I've been really grateful and lucky in that department. Yeah. What else should I go into?
That's incredible. I mean, you kind of answered one of my questions, and I was going to ask, what was the best part about growing up in Danvers? Like, if you had to pick one thing that was great, and it can be geographic advantage, it could be the social structure you had, just whatever.
There's a lot of things that were great about it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's hard to choose.
It had a great school system. This is going to sound kind of corny, but I got a great education. Really lucky.
That's great.
Went to a private high school where I shaped my mentality and everything. Growing up in New England too, you got all 4 seasons.
Yeah, that's
huge.
huge.
Which was awesome. You
Yeah.
know, so I was like, I love to ski in the winter. My buddies had houses in New Hampshire and Maine.
Yeah.
So I was a big lake house kid, you
Okay.
know, traveling up to New Hampshire and Maine. I think geographically, I loved growing up in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful place. And the fact that it's close to those, you know, you can hit the mountains, you can hit the lake, you can hit, I mean, we were 20 minutes from the ocean. I was
Right.
basically on the water.
Yeah.
So that was just dope, you know?
Yeah, that's cool. I like that you mentioned that you got to experience all 4 seasons because back in college when I was an Uber driver, I was driving this woman from California who had grown up in Southern California, and we were kind of talking about that in particular, and she had been living in New York State for a while at that point, and I go, you know, what's the biggest difference there? And she goes, experiencing all 4 seasons, like you don't realize how many of your memories are tied to the seasons,
So
right?
true.
Oh, this happened in the fall of 2009, or this happened in the winter of 2015. And when you don't, she mentioned that when you don't have those really stark, intense seasonal changes that we both got to grow up with, the memories are a little bit blurrier.
Right.
I found that
Right.
really interesting.
That is
So,
really interesting.
Yeah, I
And
think
it's true, man.
Yeah, it's something we take for granted growing
Because
up
it
in
is
that
so
place.
stark up north.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's
Oh, it's
fall,
wintertime now.
and then the next day it's snowing.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
yeah, that's crazy. I mean, so kind of piggybacking off that, growing up in the Northeast, you know, did you have any big aspirations as a kid? I mean, did you have your crosshairs set on something specific, or did you just have general greatness in mind?
That's a great question. I think I knew from a young age that I didn't like the 9 to 5. No disrespect to anyone that works the
needs it.
office grind.
Yeah.
Like it's some people love that. Some people love the commute to work
Yeah,
and stuff. They
absolutely,
love the
man.
grind
Power
of it.
to 'em.
I knew from a young age that wasn't me.
Okay.
I could not work in an office. I was kind of artistic as a kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to do something on my feet. I want to do something where I can help people. I wanted to be a doctor. Like that was something that
Okay.
I wanted to be for a long time. And I think I operated from a mindset of like, I want to make my parents, I want to make my grandma proud of me.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But I didn't lean into like, what do I really want to do?
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, I'm going to have to go off right now and just tell you how this transpired.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I went, I want to be a doctor. I was in high school. I was like, I grinded in high school. I was like, I wasn't really a partier. We kind of mentioned this in our sobriety episode,
Yeah.
but I was kind of a straight A student. I was like, I want to go to a good college so I can get a good job and stuff. You're looking at me kind of funny. Sorry.
I'm just super paying attention. I'm kind of geared up for your story. I'm like,
Yeah, I was hanging out with some kids I probably shouldn't have been hanging out with in high school. This was toward the end of high school, probably junior, senior year. They were kind of toxic individuals.
sure.
And I was always a kid that had a lot of integrity. The headmaster at my high school said this. He said, have integrity. If you're going to fail with integrity.
Yeah.
Like, don't cheat. And I was hanging out with kids that would literally like kind of cheat in school.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't bring myself to do that.
Right.
And I went into this, like, just being around those people. And like in my mind, I'm like, these kids are going to do better in this class and do better, maybe go to a better school and get a better job because they have no integrity.
Right.
They're cheating. Like
It's a short game.
Yeah. And I was like, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Maybe because I was, I don't know, a good person, I guess.
Yeah. You probably
Or-
just had a strong compass of what was right and wrong.
Yeah. And like my conscience couldn't deal with it.
Right.
So I went into a depression, and the first time in my life I experienced depression, and like I didn't really know what it was at the time. I would come home and I would, I was laying in my bed right when I got home, and I was listening to John Mayer all night. Like that's what I did.
Call an ambulance. He's listening to John
And I
Mayer.
was like, man, something's off with me right now, and I started not giving a fuck about anything.
Yeah.
I couldn't focus on school. My relationships, my friendships, like I was kind of a ghost. And I was like, man, something's off with me. And I started to do poorly in school my senior year, and I ended up not even applying to colleges my senior year.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I took a year off after high school, took a little sabbatical because I needed it. I feel
Right.
like my mental health is not in a good place. And so I just worked at a butcher shop for a year.
No way.
Yeah, down the street from my house. And eventually I kind of got my act together. The way I pulled myself out of this funk, and like I think you could probably relate to this, is you find yourself in a funk. How do you pull yourself out of it?
Mm-hmm.
You take care of your welfare, your physical. You take care of your physical health, and
Yeah.
that informs kind
Step
of your
one.
mental health. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started hitting the gym. I had never been a gym guy. I started going to the gym, working out, and like my confidence went up.
Yeah.
I felt better. My mental health improved. So I kind of got my act together, and I ended up applying to colleges. Got into a few schools. Like I probably would have gotten into some better schools had I not goofed up so hard my senior year.
Yeah.
But whatever.
It is what it is.
I got into. I mean, dude, I'm one of those people that kind of thinks everything happens for a reason.
Of course.
So you go through the hardships and stuff, and you were kind of meant to go through them,
Mm-hmm.
and like you're on the path. You're exactly where you are supposed to be.
Right.
So anyway, I ended up getting into Syracuse University, and I was pumped
Orange.
about that. Yeah. Went to college, pre-med.
That's so crazy to think about.
Yeah, pre-med. Did really well my freshman year. Rushed to fraternity. Now I'm in a fraternity. Now I'm like into the partying thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like once again, I start going down this downward spiral. And now I'm like messing up in school again.
It's flashbacks.
Yeah, and I think it was the reason I'm somebody that is all in or all out.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm either all in on, I'm like obsessive compulsive in this way. I'm either all in or I'm all out. And I couldn't bring myself to be all in on this medical stuff, on this
Yeah.
stuff that I thought I wanted to do. So I took another year off from school. And my buddies now are a couple years ahead of me because, I took a couple years off. And I go to my buddy, one of my best friends went to Harvard. I'm at his graduation and I see Steven Spielberg is speaking at his graduation speaker.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And this was something that was weighing on my mind for a while. Spielberg said this. He said something along the lines of that little voice in your head. You got to listen to that voice. He was talking about your intuition.
Right.
And my intuition had been telling me that I don't want to do this medical thing. I don't want to be a doctor. I want to there's something in me that's burning inside that wants to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I had been inspired. I used to perform these like little, like we did, my fraternity had this like monologue night. We did these like little skits.
Yeah.
And I crushed it. And the brotherhood went nuts. And one of the brothers came up to me after. He's like, dude, you should be an actor.
Yeah.
And I was like, and at the time I was a kid that had, a kind of a closed mind about this kind of stuff. I was like, that's a pipe dream. That's, you know what I mean? That's unrealistic. I wasn't bold enough back then.
Yeah.
But it was implanted in my head, the idea.
Right.
And I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah. The seed was sown.
Yeah. So
That's interesting, man.
a couple of my buddies, one of my best friends from college was like, he actually wanted to be an actor.
Right.
And I'm looking at this kid like, man, this kid has big dreams. He's dreaming bigger than life itself. Like, that's so admirable.
Yeah.
And my whole mindset changed. I was like, I need a dream. And like, I had already had the acting thing in my mind. And I was like, man. And then I'll never forget this. The Force Awakens, the Star Wars trailer came out. And I was like, for some reason, that trailer was awe-inspiring to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to be a fucking actor.
That's sick.
At this time, I was like growing a beard and stuff. And I was like, dude, I think like, I started taking a couple acting classes on campus. I was like, I'm just going to give this shit a shot.
Yeah.
And the rest was history. I was like, I want to be a friggin' actor, dude.
Did you know immediately?
As soon as I started taking the classes, I
Yeah.
met a couple dudes on campus that were making short films. They were directors on campus, but the directors had to take some intro level acting classes.
Okay.
So I became friends with some of them, and like some of them cast me in their short films and stuff on campus. I started getting involved with the student film scene.
Yeah.
And that was it. I was like, yeah, I love this. This is
That's
so
crazy,
interesting to
man.
me. It's challenging. It's creative. I was always somebody who liked a challenge, and it stretched me too. You know what I mean? It made me uncomfortable.
Right.
And I was like, if this is making me uncomfortable and I'm kind of scared of this, I gotta run right at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to hear that this is your path because, you know, the person I know you as, the intentional person that I was mentioning before, it's like when your intention isn't to be social, I think you're somewhat shy of a person, or maybe a recluse is a better word for it.
Definitely introverted guy.
Yeah, and so to hear, you know, through your fraternity and then you're getting involved in all this stuff, it's crazy. But I can't imagine the feeling of putting yourself out there. I mean, were you nervous for a lot of this stuff?
Scared shitless.
Yeah, especially acting, man.
Yeah,
Talk
man.
about being vulnerable.
Vulnerable as hell.
Oh
Such
my gosh.
vulnerable work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's insane, man.
Yeah, but looping back to, I'm at my buddy's graduation in Spielberg. All these kind of things had already happened. I kind of went back, but Spielberg was like, you got to listen to that little voice. And my intuition had been telling me, dude, you want to be an actor. This is what you want to go into that realm.
Right.
Like, and I remember I sat my mom down at dinner. I was probably a junior in college. And I was like, Mom, I got to tell you something. I was like, I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be an actor.
That's a crazy switch, man.
And dude, my mom smiled and she's like, go get him.
Wow.
You want to talk about like the support was just there.
That's
and
awesome.
like, she's like, I realized something, because in my mind as a kid, I was like, I want to make my parents proud. You have this mentality of like, you know, I want to make my parents proud. And all your parents want is for you to be happy.
Right.
They just want their kids to be happy. And like, if you can, whatever you do, a true supportive parent at least.
Yeah.
And if you can be happy, that'll make them proud.
Yeah.
So that was big for me. That was a big moment. And
That's
you know,
incredible,
I
man.
had my family's been very supportive. My friends believe in me.
Mm-hmm.
And like, even sometimes when I don't believe in myself, to have that support,
Yeah.
it's
It's like a
life-changing.
bulletproof
Yeah.
base.
Yeah.
This kind of brings me back to a question that came up when you were talking about your original friend group that ended up getting into some shady stuff and whatnot. Not shady, but like when you were young, the kids who were cheating and
Oh, these weren't my best friends.
okay,
These were other kids in my high school.
acquaintances,
Yeah.
right. Are you a people pleaser? Do you consider yourself a people
Yeah,
pleaser?
definitely. Yeah.
Do you think that plays any role in why you wanted to become an actor, or is that far away from where you're?
I think that was breaking the mold.
Right.
I think as trying to be a doctor was trying to please,
Right.
whatever.
Interesting.
you know, my parents, my whatever. Like, I just want to make people proud of me. I
Yes.
want to be successful.
So you were trying to please yourself. That sounds
In a way.
that sounds selfish the way I worded that, but what I mean is you were finally looking after number one.
Exactly.
With going after acting.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
incredible, man.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
That
really
was-
proud of
I've
you
been
for
moving
doing that.
away from the people pleaser that used to,
As
the
you
younger
should.
version of myself.
As you should. And I
Yeah.
think especially, you know, you can attest to this being someone who auditions and does that. I mean, you are just constantly dealing with rejection.
Yeah.
So if you're a people pleaser, the hurt factor is going to be way higher in those moments of being rejected.
Right. Right. I don't consider it rejection though. And someone said this.
What do
and
you,
I'm going to
describe that?
I think the casting process, I consider it selection, not rejection. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah.
I'm getting chosen to audition for this role, which is cool. And then they're selecting, they might be, dude, this is an industry where you might get turned down for your eye color.
Right.
You know what I mean? You might give a great performance. Like, there might be dozens, 100 auditions there where, wow, any of those guys could play this role.
Right.
But it's just, you got to dial in. You know?
Right.
So,
That's incredible,
Yeah.
man. That kind of brings me to my next question. Like, I kind of want to jump back into your childhood just for one more
absolutely.
thing. Were there any practices or activities you did in your early childhood that gave you that childish feeling that we describe as adults, i.e. like when, I don't know how else to say this, this is going to sound corny, but when did you feel the most alive as a kid? And did anything from your childhood that fucking made you feel like you were on fire? Do you still do any of that stuff today? And it doesn't even have to be acting. It can be small stuff. Like, I really liked eating biscuits, you know? And
That's a great question, bro.
Yeah.
I always had, and this informs the creative person that I am today. My imagination as a child was wild. I've never, this is going to sound kind of arrogant maybe, but I've never said the words, I'm bored in my life.
Because you got this weapon.
Dude, you could give me a stuffed animal and I could entertain myself for hours as a kid. Like, dude, I'm the lore that's going on is Marvel ain't got shit on it. All right. Like, I could sit in my room with two sticks and like the child in me it's part of it of my life right now is trying to recapture that weapon of an imagination that I had. So it didn't take a lot to capture that childlike wonder.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a couple other things that I really enjoyed doing. Being out in nature as a kid, climbing trees. You know, I lived in an area where I could do that stuff. That brought me incredible joy.
That's still something you do today.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to do it more, but I was outside every day. You know, this was before like smartphones and, you know,
This was the track phone days.
this like I'm talking, you know, nothing. You got to like ride your bike to your boy's house.
Yeah.
And being like, there was a sense of freedom that I had when I was a kid, and my mom was really cool about kind of letting me do my thing and like make mistakes, and like, you know, as long as I texted her, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
And she knew I was good. Like, she let me kind of
She'll let you
wander.
grow up.
I grew up in a safe space, so just riding my bike around town with my boys and just getting in a crap like
I
that
remember doing
brought me
that.
a lot of joy too. It was just remember like summertime and you just
And it felt like it lasted forever.
Yeah,
It
and you
sounds
just-
so cliche to say,
right, but you
it's-
just had nothing to do.
yeah.
This was before we had jobs and stuff like
Yeah.
summer jobs, like nothing to do.
Yeah, you really take for granted how much a calendar school year has an effect on how you develop,
Right.
right? And especially like the summer, it was such a big deal, man. It was like this gap in our schedule.
Yeah.
It was like go nuts, and you felt like you could do it because the rest of the year you worked hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, you know, as artists and creatives, you're like, I should always be doing something.
Right.
You don't give yourself that gap anymore.
Right.
Think about how much your battery, both social battery, creative battery, how much that got charged up when you allowed yourself that gap.
Right.
So it's like, you know, maybe our work would be a little better if we didn't work so much.
Right.
Just something to consider.
Or we had more recess time.
Yeah. We're going to recess all day. So kind of jumping out of your childhood now, I kind of wanted to ask you about your career that you've chosen to pursue, man. Like, why acting? If you can kind of give, like, can you give a really specific answer to that?
I've always been drawn to telling stories. And I've walked out of movie theaters, I've walked out of theater productions just feeling so awe-inspired so many times in my life. And something that I always think about is like, wow, that actor really made me feel some type of way.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to tell stories. I wanted to make other people feel that way.
Yeah.
But I also was really interested in the work itself. Like how does, I remember walking out of The Dark Knight. My grandma took it to me when I was like 14. And I watched Heath Ledger's performance of the Joker. And I like thought about it. I still think about it all the time. Like, it's just like, dude, how does that dude inhabit that character? Like,
Right.
that is so fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I saw it as challenging. I always wanted to challenge myself. And I also thought of acting as an opportunity to do something different often.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're not necessarily playing the same. If you get jobs, if you're lucky to book roles, you're playing different characters and
Yeah.
different stories.
You're not pigeonholed into one thing.
Yeah, you're not sitting at a desk doing an Excel sheet every day. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just different, and it's
Yeah.
man, it's challenging and it's vulnerable, and dude, even some of the training that I've done has made me a better person. I feel like it's
Yeah.
made me more open and a better listener, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of reasons. Yeah, but those
Yeah.
are some of the big ones.
Well, I think it's interesting that you say how it's affected you in outside of acting, because so much of being a good storyteller is being a good listener,
Right.
right? If you're not
and a good communicator.
Right. And if you're not taking in, if you're outputting more information than you're taking in, that's, you can kind of see where that leads.
Right.
So,
And I think I'm somebody that's always had a strong sense of empathy.
right.
I grew up in a house with all women, and I've always had an easy time feeling other people's kind of how they're feeling. You know what I mean? And like, I think that informs my work as well.
Yeah.
I can get, all right, what this character, man, this person is okay, so.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I guess my next question is more so aimed at when you started, but I mean, now that we're talking about it, I mean, this obviously holds true now too. I mean, do you have doubts? Does that what does that look like for you? And how do you overcome those?
Doubts about what
Just like if you should be doing it, or, and I'm not saying this to like plant these ideas in your head. I'm just like artist to artist.
Yeah.
As people who have doubts, I'm curious what that looks like for you and how you overcome it. Because I think if people could see how someone like you gets through that, I think that could inspire a lot of people and give them tools to do it.
Todd, you're snapping with the questions right now.
Cut the shit.
Man, it's for self-doubt kills dreams, I think.
Yeah.
Just in general. But of course, man, I deal with doubts every day. I deal with the imposter syndrome. I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever really doubted the fact that I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes me feel that way. That's like, whoa, okay, I got to explore this.
Yeah.
And when I talk about acting, I'm also very interested in writing in that realm of storytelling too. Like, I'm working on some writing things that inspires me, but I think sometimes I doubt my ability. You know what I mean? And which is nonsense.
Right.
You got to give yourself as an artist time to grow and time to, just become, I don't want to say better, but give yourself time to explore. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that feeling could be illustrated with, I think it was Miles Davis who said it. We'll throw it up on the screen if I'm wrong, but he said the hardest thing in music is sounding like yourself. And I think the same could be thought of with acting, but allowing yourself the grace to grow into that role, so to speak, because it seems, from an outsider's perspective, because I'm not an actor, it seems like it's a delicate balance between having enough self worth and substance there, and being conscious of how you're important, but also understanding that you're a mouthpiece and a scribe for something. And
you're there to
idea.
serve the story.
Exactly.
Yeah. You actually got to take the ego out of it, I think, as an actor.
Yeah.
So it's about letting go of this image of Sean Gill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
be okay with being the loser in the movie.
You got to be okay with looking like a fool if you're going to go anywhere as an actor. And that's something I'm learning to do.
Yeah.
And that's a really great point you made. You know what I'm saying? Like, so like, it's also about, letting the ego die a little bit and being like, because sometimes I'll watch myself, man, and I'm sure you can relate when you hear yourself, or you watch a video of your performance and you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just like kind of makes you cringe. And like, there's a lot of great actors that like, hey, I don't watch myself.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's for that reason or if it's because they get over analytical, and then the next time they're doing something, they're all in their fucking head.
Yeah, maybe.
So
I'm curious what kind of, piggybacking off this, what are some hardships that are inherent to your craft? Like what, and maybe not necessarily stuff that you experience, but other actors, like what, if you're going to be an actor and if you're going to pursue that calling, what are you absolutely going to have to deal with 100%?
I think if you have to fall in love with the grind of like, auditioning and stuff, like you might be on set 5% of the time. So like the job is auditioning. And if you can't fall in love with that, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Because everyone is excited to get on set and stuff, but you know, some people will get auditions and they'll be like, oh, I gotta do this fucking audition. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you got to really reframe
Kind of-
your mindset to being like, oh, you know, who do I get to play
get to
today?
audition.
Yeah, who do I get to be today?
Right.
So I think, you know, it gets glorified as this, oh yeah, you know, but it's a lot of it is just, you know, showing up. You know, you got to train. You got to,
Yeah.
you know, you got to do these things that aren't as glamorous.
Yeah. I think to reference our first episode, it's like it's 95% ascent
Right.
and 5% peak with a view.
Just like any great, anyone who's great, you know what I mean? The basketball player, whatever. LeBron, you know, like the game, the performance, the highlight reel, you know, that's might
the
be
Instagram feed.
Yeah, that might be 2% of
Yeah.
what goes on, you know, in the empty gym, him just grinding.
Yeah. How does your career and your chase of being an actor affect your self-worth in both a positive and maybe sometimes a negative way?
I think the fact that I'm just taking the risk and like doing what I want to do has increased my self-esteem in a way.
That's enough to just boost it.
Right. I think it takes a lot of courage to do something that, you know, is scary or is a bit, you know what I mean? I'm fighting for my life financially.
Yeah.
So,
Same.
you know, it's a tough road. It can be a lonely journey too when you're chasing your dreams. You know what I mean? Like there's a great page in I think it's the War of Art or
Pressfield,
one of the
right?
Pressfield books where he talks about, I remember the chapter is called Into the Wilderness.
I think it might be The Artist's Journey, the second book.
You think so?
I don't know.
I'm going to read it right now.
We'll review.
I'm gonna
You
go
have it
get
with you?
I'm going to go get it.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna go
Yeah, go get it.
It's just that. It's exactly what I want to say right now.
I'll do my segment while you're gone. It was at that moment that Gill knew he was the best man we had.
I got it. I had to go grab the book.
All right.
I'm going to read this passage because it's from Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield. And this just sums up kind of how I feel about what we were just talking about. In a way, I was lucky that I experienced failure for so many years because there were no conventional rewards. I was forced to ask myself, why am I doing this? Am I crazy? All my friends are making money and settling down and living normal lives. What the hell am I doing? Am I nuts? What's wrong with me? In the end, I answered the question by realizing that I had no choice. I couldn't do anything else. When I tried, I got so depressed I couldn't stand it. So when I wrote yet another novel or screenplay that I couldn't sell, I had no choice but to write another after that. The truth was, I was enjoying myself. Maybe nobody else liked the stuff I was doing, but I did. I was learning. I was getting better. The work became, in its own demented way, a practice. It sustained me, and it sustains me still. I mean, I got goosebumps reading that.
Yeah, Pressfield's a freaking genius, man. It kind of reminds me, that's an incredible passage. Like, honestly, thanks for reading that.
Yeah, I love that.
And it reminds me of the quote from, I don't think he said it. I think he was quoting someone else. But the quote of, you don't have a right to the fruits of your labor, only to the labor itself.
Yeah.
And that really puts it into perspective. And I think it kind of piggybacks off what you just read. And it's incredible, man. It's just like, enjoy the freaking journey.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, you know, like what you said about the labor thing, you know, it's just on point. Like,
It's amazing. And I think that book dives into what I wanted to talk about next, which is kind of the spirituality of all of this. And I'm curious how that ties in to your acting, because like I just mentioned, it's, you know, you're an interpreter, you're a storyteller, you're a mouthpiece for something greater, right? Even if that's something that you wrote, Like this is like the Rick Rubin mindset here of like it came from a divine source, right? And it's selfish to think that you alone are the creator of this work. And so I'm just curious how you kind of interpret the mechanics of all this. Like how does, you know, I don't want to sound too woo woo, but like how does spirituality play a role in not only your life, but your career and this thing that you love and this thing that you feel you were put on earth to do? Do you have a definition of spirituality? Is that something you think about?
Yeah, I mean, it's as I get older, the definition of it changes. I mean,
That's intrinsic. I think also, like, again, knowing you from the outside, what I see is someone who embodies it unconsciously.
in what way?
I think that everything you do, it like serves the energy of the thing that you're serving. Right. And, you know, even it's like you walk into a room and you can feel when the energy is bad.
Yeah.
Right. And you can feel that when you read a script. You can feel that when you watch a movie. You can almost feel people's intentions. And I see you as someone who, you know, trying to positively contribute and serve the work is so inherent to you that maybe you don't even think about it.
I just feel like from a more broad perspective, like I feel like that we're all connected.
Yeah.
And I feel like that you have kind of a duty as a human being in this life to build people up and collaborate and help people.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? I'm not a destructive person. I consider myself a constructive person. And, you know, any kind of art form in a lot of ways, especially movie making, music, whatever, is a collaboration a lot of times. And I think that's something that attracts me to it.
Yeah.
And as much as an introvert as I am, I think when I can collaborate, I feel like I'm stepping out of my comfort zone too. And that is making me grow as a human being. And I think growth is a big part of spirituality.
Yeah.
I think it's evolving throughout your life and becoming a better person.
Yeah.
And serving not just humanity, but the rest of the world. Sounds kind of corny, but
No, but it's true. I think that what you do specifically, acting and being a part of that world, does a really good job of holding a mirror not up to the people consuming it and also to the people making it. And I think that's kind of what you touched on with spirituality, this growth thing. Like people learn so much about themselves through movies and TV, and they see themselves in these characters, and it's so reflective.
yeah, it is. That's a great point. I think stories can help us make sense of our lives. Have you ever walked out of a movie theater and been like, sometimes you feel like your faith was restored almost in a way.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it too.
Yeah.
You know, I think any kind of storytelling, a great book, a movie, whatever,
Yeah.
can help you make sense of the world. And sometimes the world can be a pretty dark place.
Yeah.
And stuff. So those things can be, you know, a beacon of light sometimes.
Yeah. This might be, and you don't have to answer this question, but do you believe that your path was laid out for you, or do you truly believe that you are carving that path? Or maybe there are lights strung throughout the jungle, but you're the one that are guiding you, like they're your North Star, but you're the one kind of cutting away the brush.
Whoa. I think I mentioned this kind of earlier about how I feel like everything kind of happens for a reason, but it's kind of like the fate versus free will concept.
Yeah, essentially.
I think I'm a lover of fate. I think to some extent my path is laid out for me, but I have to make decisions constantly. It's kind of a tricky concept.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're saying is like fate got you started,
Mm-hmm.
and free will is what is allowing
It's
you
like
to
the gas
continue.
pedal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because there's a conscious effort there. I mean, we both know this as artists,
Right.
that you can't just sit around and wait for, you know, God or the spirit or whatever you believe in to give you everything that you need.
Yeah, whatever
Right.
your God is, I think it's operating through you.
Right.
And
And like you said, growth, like you're going out there and you're finding God and you're finding that spirit and that energy in the stuff that you're creating and
Right.
doing. Like it's a journey. Every part of this is a journey.
Right.
And like there's just so much to learn about yourself in that sense. So I think that's an interesting answer. Yeah, I think that's cool. I think something I'm curious about too, like zoom out of your acting career for a second. Like, is there something in particular? And I'm going to ask the flip side of this question as well. So I'm not just drilling you on negative stuff here, but is there something in particular that you wake up and every day there's one particular thing that's like a mental hurdle that you have to get over? Like, is there anything that you deal with every single day?
I feel like I got to battle myself every day when I wake up. There's a battle that I got to fight just to walk out of my bedroom sometimes. And I think a lot of people deal with this, and it's just you're your own worst enemy. Like, I got to lace them up and get to the gym today.
Yeah.
I got to do this. I got to do that. And you're just, you know, you got a sword and there's a dragon in the way.
Yeah.
I got to, you know, chase this dream, do this thing. Like, man, it takes a lot of discipline to battle.
Yeah, I think so, especially with, you know, your past. And that's kind of what I wanted to ask next is like, when you wake up and you're standing in the face of said beast, is there any part of you that kind of flashes back to the trauma of going through a depressive spell as a child? Like, do you feel those same feelings come up and you're like, shit, it's back?
I used to just let the dragon blow smoke up my ass, and I would just kind of bow down to the dragon. But I've learned to, you know, that the dragon can get slayed by the big dog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Big Gill.
You know, and like I just had the Pressfield book. He talks about this resistance.
Yeah.
It's a resistance. It's like a dragon. It operates 24/7 in the shadows. It's there, and you have to recognize it to defeat it.
That's the hardest part.
It is the hardest part, and you got to fight it every day. You slay it I slayed it yesterday. I got to battle it again today.
Yeah.
And tomorrow it's going to come back at full strength, 100 HP. The thing's going to be throwing bows.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think about that. Like, it's relentless.
it is.
Especially, and sometimes it feels like, depending on the life and the career path that you've chosen, that sometimes can dictate how big that beast is.
Right.
You know, and how bad like the amount of days that I just want to wake up and just play Call of Duty in your office all day
long. Yeah,
like,
for sure.
and I'm a little bit sick of this facade that some people will put on, that like they wake up and it's easy for them to just grind every day. It's like this kind of veil they're holding over their human side, you know, this idea that, you know, they want to work all the time. It's like, no, you don't. I don't believe that. You're a human being, and the path of least resistance here is to sit on your ass all day and do nothing.
If you're really chasing what you want to chase, the resistance will be incredible.
Yeah. It's insane.
And it's to deny that, to fake like you don't deal with resistance is utter nonsense.
Yeah. The way I view
Every
that,
artist does.
yeah, if you deny resistance, I almost view it as resistance is, say it's a person standing in front of you, right? If you deny its existence, it's going to stay there, it's going to clone itself, and it's going to go behind you as well. Because
absolutely.
you're just like,
It is a powerful essence.
yeah, it's not something that you can try to work around. So.
And dude, we as friends who, you know, do different things kind of creatively, like we wanted to collaborate and create something.
Right.
Which is manifested in this podcast now.
Right.
And you know, we set out to do this and we were like, you know what? We're going to do this because we enjoy talking to each other. Like, forget if anyone ever listens to the thing.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to do it because we enjoy doing it. And there was massive resistance just to sit down and do this.
Right.
We talked about it for a year before you walked into the kitchen one day and you're like, yo, we're doing this. Let's meet and let's get started. And I was kind of like, damn, this kid had a lightsaber today against the dragon.
That's an interesting point too, because some days you wake up and you have a lightsaber and other days you have a toothpick.
Right.
But it's like, what matters is that you're putting up a fight.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know, I just admire actors so much. I think it's a ridiculously difficult career path. And it's, a lot of arts are subjective, but I almost feel like there's more subjectivity in music than there is in acting. Right? Like when there's a bad actor, it's usually, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it usually pretty unanimous that like a lot of people think this person's a bad actor? Mm-hmm. But with music, it's like, hey, that's a bad song, but your neighbor's gonna be like, actually, that's my favorite song.
Yeah.
It's more subjective. So I think it's incredibly difficult to make it in acting. And it's like,
I think it's because we as human beings are great. We got great bullshit detectors. So when we see a performance that's not truthful, it's just red flags fly up in our head.
Yeah.
That's not real. What I'm watching isn't real.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to act truthfully.
Yeah.
You gotta break down those walls. And I think you're right about the subjectivity thing. And I forget where I was going with the rest of that.
I mean, do you find it difficult to tap into that emotional space that you need to? Because like the craziest fucking thing to me is when someone who's an actor can make themselves cry. I think that's something we've maybe grown a little bit used to. We're like, oh, that person can make themselves cry. They're an actor or whatever. That's insane that people can do that.
That's wild. I don't have that. I don't know if I can do that right now. I've done it before, but it took me a lot of... I had to really explore and prepare and craft, use my imagination, and I had to. There was a bunch of things that had to go right. I had my director playing "Fix You" in the background, and my dog had just died recently. Luckily I was in a space where like I'm not gonna have to, But
I would have fallen apart.
Yeah, I started getting messy.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting. Like in this example, we're talking about sadness, but I think it's also very difficult to tap into other emotions in a genuine way.
One of the hardest ones, I was taking a Meisner intensive and the Meisner technique, and we were playing with triumphant joy, which is like notoriously very difficult to like really truthfully bring triumphant joy.
Can you describe that? 'Cause I'm not really sure.
Imagine the most joy you've ever experienced in like I don't even know, like, have you ever been triumphantly joyful?
Maybe not visibly, but yeah, I felt that way.
Right.
Where you almost can't believe how happy you are.
Yeah, it's like it's euphoria. It's like,
yeah.
But to just get to that from this state,
right? That's crazy. I never really thought about it like that. So, kind of the last question I wanted to ask in this category, and this doesn't even need to be acting specific, but just as Sean Gill, what is something incredible and great that you get to experience every day?
Every day,
and it can be multiple things too. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything big, but I'm just curious, like, what gets you out of bed? And I think let's look past your career. Let's talk about like the human shit, like the real shit.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest with you. Something that just popped up in my head when you asked that. I'm a big fan of myself.
Yeah.
And that sounds kind of all right, dude. Dude, you hear me? I'm a little weird. Like I'll be talking to myself. I'll crack jokes to myself. I'll crack myself up. Like, and like I got no problem being alone and like hanging out. Like solitude is something that's important to me. Mm-hmm. It recharges my batteries. It's when I'm most creative. And I just feel like if you love yourself, you'll be okay. Mm-hmm. And like, yeah, I mean, the fact that I get to hang out with myself every day, that sounds kind of stupid, but man, just being me makes me happy.
Yeah.
It's like corny as that is.
You get to wake up and you get to be Sean Gill every day.
Yeah.
That's great.
Right.
I think Sean Gill's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, and I get living with you is pretty tight.
Yeah,
I love you.
It's
so.
been great, man. I love you too. All right, let's step away from all this heavy shit.
All right.
Because we've been getting into it, I feel like we've dug into spirituality and, your strengths, your weaknesses, all that stuff. But now I just kind of want to just ask some stupid questions.
Word.
The first one is a scenario question. You're on a date, much like we are now. What is the first personality trait that person could exhibit where you go, I would like a second date with this person?
If she's got a good sense of humor, if she's kind of a goof,
Yeah.
if she's
like doesn't take herself
unafraid
too seriously.
yeah, if she's unafraid to be herself, then that's green flag city.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes time to get there.
Sure.
You can really show your true self, but
Yeah.
if you if you don't take yourself too seriously, you can be a goof around me.
Yeah.
That means that opens the doors for me to be a goof too. And when I
Yeah.
get goofing,
You're a
yikes.
goof. Yikes.
Yeah, sense of humor. If you're kind and polite, like if I'm at a restaurant and you are nice to that's a big red flag if you're not.
Right. We talked about that for a while.
Right. Those are simple things, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think that stuff is important. I think it's like, I always like asking people that question, when does that green light go off in your head on a date, And I think
if you're listening, if you're a good listener, if you show interest about what I have to say too, I'm always going to be I'm a good listener. I'll let you go off. But like, if you're taking an interest in me,
yeah.
that shows that you're interested in me. And when somebody's interested in me, I'm more interested in them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think the key to being interesting is to be interested. And I think the key
That's hard.
to being loved is to love,
Yeah. You kind of have to be
You get
what you want to
give.
receive. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great song. That's cool. I'm curious are there 3 items in your life that you just can't, absolutely cannot live without?
Oof. Items.
Or it could be anything.
My contact lenses. I wouldn't be able to see. So, I need to see. What else? Peanut butter, bro. I don't think I could live without peanut butter.
You can't go without chefing up.
I gotta tell the story real quick. I make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day, and this kid walks in the kitchen. I'm making my 250th of the year. We're in probably September.
In February.
Yeah. And he's just like, I don't make a lot of gourmet meals, obviously, but I'm just chefing up a PB&J, and RIZZO walks through the kitchen. He stops and he's like, chefing up. And I just started cracking up, and now it's like a joke. It's like,
Chef it up.
chefing up.
Yeah, if I see you break out the loaf of bread, this guy's about to chef
This
up.
kid's a culinary king.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's-
Peanut butter, cut my contacts. Another thing I can't live without, bro. I could live without a lot, bro. I don't know, man. I would have to think about that.
Yeah. We can come back to that in a later episode, I
don't
think.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. What's your go-to Uber Eats order or place? I'd rather.
I forget the name of the place, but I've been getting General Tso's tofu with fried rice. Their tofu with the General Tso's sauce is out of control.
Yeah.
And
Do they cook this tofu in a certain way that you
I don't
really
know.
like?
I don't know, but it's really soft and it's just money.
Yeah.
And I get that, and then I get a side of broccoli and stuff, and it just fills me up, and it's good.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the spot, but
That's fire. Do you have a favorite restaurant in Atlanta? Let's do this. Favorite restaurant in Atlanta and favorite in your hometown.
okay. In Atlanta, dude, I haven't eaten out a ton, but I went to this spot when my buddy was in town. We hit this spot, Del Bar in Inman Park.
Yeah.
It was fire. Man, I kind of like Muchacho's pretty sweet.
Muchacho's great.
Yeah.
The Muchacho has a great vibe.
Yeah.
If you just sitting there is great.
Yeah. I gotta hit some more restaurants. In my hometown, oof.
I know that's probably
Oh,
a
that's
competitive
tough,
answer.
man. I gotta go. Like I said, I mentioned this on another episode, but I love going there, and like I have a ton of memories there, and the pizza is the best in the league. Sam and Joe's in Danvers.
Yeah.
It's like an Italian spot, and it's just money.
What was the? Isn't there some kind of roast beef sandwich you were telling me about?
Oh, dude, the North Shore of Mass is famous for roast beef sandwiches. I gotta take you up there, and your head will explode.
Yeah.
As someone who you would love it.
Make my entire personality around beef.
Yeah. They the roast beef sandwiches up there are something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Oh, dude. We gotta do some more traveling, man.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go next?
I think we should go hit some national parks, man.
Yeah?
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. Dude, this just popped up in my head when you said the word travel. I might have to tell a quick story that's all time.
Yeah,
you want to talk
please.
about a near-death experience?
Love to.
Dude, I'm on spring break in Cancun. I'm 21. I'm with my boys. This should have been brought up in the drunk story sober episode,
Yeah.
but I somehow forgot about this. We got like the spring break package or whatever. So like every day at the resort, everything's all included. And I spent all my money on this trip. I'm like in Mexico with $0 to my name, but everything's like included. And like every day we go to like, it's, this foam party one day, there's another thing the next. We go to this island. We take a bus and then we jump on a ferry, and the ferry takes us to this island. There's like a big DJ. It's like a rave or whatever. I get so banged up on Cuervo that I'm face down on the beach in the sand. My buddies, and now we're like heading back to the hotel. So we got to get on the ferry. All my buddies like get on the ferry. They're like, "Where's Gill? What the fuck?" And or they said, "Where's Fish?" My nickname growing up was Big Fish.
Yeah.
My buddy gave me that nickname. Last name's Gill. So that's everyone calls me Fish. But they're like, "Where the fuck's Fish, bro?" Like, what? They're freaking out. They're all taking the ferry back. I'm still in the sand, bro, like an ostrich. So I get eventually I like come out of this coma state, and I'm like, "What the fuck?" So I take the last ferry. Luckily I get on it, and it goes back to the mainland. But that doesn't you got to take a bus to get to the hotel. And this spot where we took the ferry at is like in the hood of Cancun. So like I'm like looking fratty, and I didn't even dress that fratty at the time, but I'm wearing like a blue Vineyard Vines polo.
Oh, you're fucked.
I'm cooked. And all of a sudden it's like the last bus to go back. And for some reason, there must have been a racket going on with the bus driver, but he's like, it's $1 to get on the bus. I didn't have $1. I didn't have $1. Everyone's on the bus. I'm the last dude standing out there. And they're not letting me on. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. I'm like begging to get on the bus, bro. They're like, nope.
Oh, no.
Bus takes off. All of a sudden, I'm standing there, and these guys start creeping up to me.
Oh, dude.
I can see a gun on one of their hips.
How did this not come up in the last
I don't know,
episode?
bro. I choked.
That's
But
crazy.
luckily, I had been studying Spanish all my life. I had like took Spanish classes. I'm in college at this point, taking Spanish classes. So like my Spanish is. I'm not saying I'm fluent in Spanish, but I'm almost
You can get
there.
by.
Yeah, I can communicate. And with a language, bro, it's like a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Right.
Like I couldn't speak shit now, but luckily at the time I'm dialed in, and my buddy had an Adderall prescription. We're popping them like Tic Tacs, so I'm like a little tipsy, and I'm like wired on
Locked
Adderall.
in,
Yeah,
bro.
I'm dialed in. So these guys are like, "What are you doing?" There's this whole conversation's happening in Spanish. I start talking to these guys, and I'm like, I'm feeling pretty good, but I'm also scared shitless.
Oh, of
I'm like,
course.
dude, the bus is gone. Like I have no. I think my phone was dead. I couldn't contact my buddies because I just know I would have. So I think I remember either my phone was dead or I had no service. I'm in Mexico. And me and these guys start talking, and they're like, "Let me get the shirt off your back." In that moment, I realized, bro, if I give these guys my shirt, I'm giving them my life. I'm done. I take my shirt off, and I'm cooked.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't do that, fellas. And I kind of just took on this, like, I'm not afraid of you guys persona. So I mean, one of them has a gun. So I'm like, I actually am fearing for my life, but I turn the charisma on and I turn the charm on, and I start talking to them. We start talking, and like all of a sudden I'm like cracking jokes in Spanish. These guys start laughing. They realize I'm just a guy. I'm not this like fratty douchebag. Like I'm just a guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like we bullshitted for an hour and a half, dude. Yeah, all in Spanish. And we're like fucking homies at this point. And I'm like, they're asking me like, yo, where you from? Like, I'm like, I go to school in New York. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, Nueva York. The only thing they knew about New York was 9/11. They're like, 9/11.
Are you serious?
Very sad. They're like, muy triste. I'm like, yeah. And I made up a lie, and I feel terrible about this now. No disrespect to anyone that has lost loved ones in that tragedy. But I told them like my dad was like killed. And all of a sudden I got him, bro. Like they're like, one of the dudes is like, you know, he had like teardrop tattoos. He's got a real tear coming down. And like they're like, do you want to ride back to your hotel?
Are you serious?
So these guys are all armed, bro. And I'm like, do I get into this car right now? I'm like, fuck it. It's my only chance.
Yeah.
So I did. And they drove me back to the hotel. They said, have a good night, brother. And I was like, I dapped them all up and I was like, dude, if I ever run into you guys again, which I'm not going to, but like, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to, like, you know what I mean? It was just such a cool moment. And I walked back into the hotel room. All my boys are sitting there freaking out. They're like, yeah, when I walk in. And I told them the story of like me, like talking to these guys. They're like, you shitting me? But it was just wild.
That's
I got out of that
outrageous.
situation. Yeah, I got out. And keep in mind, you know, before I got into this situation, I was shit-faced, laying down in the sand. One of my buddies told me, he's like, dude, there's this blue polo shirt guy. I walked over this idiot. I'm like, that was me, bro.
Oh my God.
But anyway, yeah, that was a near-death experience. Sorry to like go off the
No, I think
rails
that's a great way to kind of
Wild
start to wrap
story.
this up, man. That's insane. I mean,
I think that's a good segue into. I'm living a sober life now.
That's
But
true.
that was the kind of crap that I used
That's
to get
true,
into
man.
those. I used to get into those situations, like not that extreme. I'm in a foreign country, like with take off your shirt.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, honestly, to be completely transparent, man, like I just completely forgot to ask about that.
yeah.
Your sobriety, but like
We talked about it.
we talked about it in the last episode, maybe that's why, but it's definitely worth touching on in this episode because you've been sober longer than I have. And I look to you as someone who, you know, kind of inspires me to continue that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So how has that been difficult? And has it been difficult?
Not as difficult as I thought it'd be. You know, a few months in, I didn't really have the desire to drink anymore. I'm a creature of my environment. You know, if I'm not being in this household where it's kind of a sober household, like it's been easy. And I'm really grateful to have you on this journey with me, keeping each other accountable. I just realized, man, my life's been better without it.
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
Yeah.
It's not serving me, and my life's been better without it. And I have no reason, you know, sometimes I'll miss that buzz, but there's no reason for me to get back on it because, like I said, like I do have an addictive personality, and I feel like if I started drinking again, I'm not saying I will never drink again. There might come a time where like now that I have a healthy relationship, like, you know, I have a better mindset, like there could be a time when but it's not serving me. My life's better without it. I got a clear head. I'm happy. I'm good.
Yeah. Like why go back to it?
Right.
Yeah. Do you miss it at all? Are there times when you miss it?
I miss that feeling of being more, you know, the social inhibitions,
Right.
you know, I miss that a little bit, but I realized I can, you know, I can
get that
turn
with
it
other
on.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't miss everything else about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the way it would make me feel the next day, like the anxiety. Like I used to have a lot of anxiety, and I stopped drinking, and my anxiety all went away.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. I was like, wait,
magic.
this is what was making me anxious.
It's
Jeez.
insane, man. I mean, it's outrageous the effect it has on your mental health.
So crazy.
Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's so cool. I feel so blessed to be able to basically get to interview you here because I've watched you go from, you know, puking in the trash can in the living room to
Hey Zit,
hey,
tell your sister I was asking about her. Bring me a pair of panties next time you come through. Remember I did that bit for like 3 hours hammered?
hey, and then by the end you were puking, you're just like, hey, yeah. Like it was
I don't know
tough.
why I was fixated on that bit.
Yeah, but I don't know. You like you went from that to this kind of holistic, well person, and It's just cool to see you on that journey, man. I'm really proud of you. And I think
Thanks, brother.
it's cool to watch someone you love become better,
You're right.
not only physically and mentally, but just like become a better version of themselves.
Right.
You
I
know,
feel like it's part of the path, part of the
Yeah.
the fate of it all. Like,
Absolutely.
this was a step that I had to take.
Yeah, and it's one of those kind of big wins that you can take in your battle against resistance, right?
Right.
You can go, I made it this far. Like I'm strong enough to do this. It's, there's a pile of proof
Right. Right.
that, no one can deny this. No one can take this from me.
Right.
I've done this.
Yeah.
So let this be a testament to my work ethic and my commitment and my discipline. And I think that's something that you have built, and it's become a really beautiful thing to show for yourself.
Appreciate
I think
that.
that's really cool, man. And honestly, I kind of want to close this out. I want to kind of give you a moment to be selfish. Like, is there anything else about yourself that you want to talk about that we didn't talk about that you feel that is maybe an important part of your journey?
I think we had a good conversation, man. There's nothing jumping out at me right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll watch this back and be like, damn, I forgot that.
Yeah.
But I'll just do a little outro here.
Yeah.
I'll send us off. I want to thank y'all if you're listening. I want to thank you, bro, for giving me this opportunity.
It's been a pleasure, man.
I appreciate you. And if you're listening, thanks for making it this far. I hope you're doing well. And thanks for tuning into the podcast.
Yeah.
My name's Sean Gill. You can find me. I'll post
Let's
that right
plug your
here.
socials, man.
Yeah, social. You can catch that. I'll plug the podcast right here. You can find us on social media, on IG and TikTok.
That's right.
Thanks for hanging out. I love you. If you're listening, what do you got there? Oh,
Poot us out of here. Sean Gill, the pooter expert.
the Pooter, Jack Vale. Shout out. This thing has brought us a lot of joy.
Yep.
That was an awful one.
Come on, get a better one. Get a better one. And that's a wrap.